your posing experience, expertise, how it's developed, all that.
Okay, so my interest in it started from my cousin, Ricky, who was a phenomenal poser. So when I saw him working with his clients post-workout, one thing he treated with a lot of importance was posing. And the Socias family were more, we all play sports, but we're more on the artistic side of anything. My dad's a musician, my grandfather was a musician, a lot of great writers and stuff. So I could see that my cousin viewed the gym as a place of art rather than, for his bodybuilding clients, rather than a place of athletics. When I speak to a lot of people trying to get in shape, they are so discouraged of years and years and years of trying to get in shape because they were never the athletic type, right? They never really showed a lot of interest in sports or anything like that. So they never really gravitated towards fitness because that has always been correlated in their minds to athleticism. So one thing that I love to teach people is that you can actually enter fitness with an artistic mind, not an athletic mind. So that's where that stemmed. And then just the art of it. My mom was a ballet dancer and my dad a musician, and I played sports. It was just kind of the perfect blend to me being able to kind of marry the two of someone performing in the gym and then being able to show that off. And that's why I love posing.
So how many shows have you done? Because you've done a lot, right?
Yeah, I've done a decent amount. More than 6, 7, 8, I don't know.
6, 7, 8 around there.
I've been competing since 2014 in about 2 a year, about 1 to 2 a year, I would say. But I'm not sure if I'm going to compete again just because I'll have to go to that next level to actually be competitive. So maybe one day, but I don't think it's really me. I just love every other aspect of the sport. So and I really love teaching it. I love teaching it. So I'm not sure how much longer I'll be trying to compete. If I do, it's purely for fun. I'm very realistic with myself. But in terms of me having an interest in the sport, so I tried to get fit in 2007. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to get fit, right? Lose weight. There was no bodybuilding interest or anything like that. But within the first 6 months to a year of training, that's when I really started to take an interest, pick up the magazines and stuff like that. And I don't know if we could dig up one of the magazines, but Ricky's in a couple Flex magazines. He has his several pages. I vividly remember like my friends and I, my friend Brandon and Daniel and I looking at like one of his shoulder workouts was in the magazine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just completely ripped to shreds, vasculars out. And that was my cousin. So that stuff really played a big part in me wanting to walk into the gym to pursue bodybuilding, right? So when I graduated college, I needed to do my internship. So half the year was with Ricky, and I spent pretty much shadowing him train. And we're talking about training a mom who's trying to get in better shape to going over to visit Phil Heath at Armbrust Pro Gym, which Phil Heath is 7-time Mr. Olympia, arguably one of the greatest to ever do it. So, I saw that at 19 years old, and I was sitting on the coach's side of things, Yeah, and Hani Rambada was coaching my cousin at the time, and we had beta versions of the EVP, this is before Evogen Nutrition started selling their supplement line, which, as you know, I preach Evogen and Raw, but Raw Nutrition wasn't out yet. But that was the first pre-workout I ever took, was a non-stim based pre-workout during the time of NO Explode, where all these like BSN and GAT and Muscle Tech, they were all, the best sellers were the high stim pre-workouts. And that's when Hani came out with a non-stim in an environment where only stim-based were selling. So since then, I've been pretty loyal to companies that have that structure of your non-stim, stim, separating certain pump agents from, but yeah, how did I get there? That's from the internship. So then the other half of my internship after college was, I was a PT assistant for a while. And that's where like my love for mechanics and stuff like that.
And so now you've had, how many clients do you think you've had that you've coached through a show and helped them prep
Yeah, so I would say I just kind of treat everyone like they're the one, that next client that has a show. And I mean, it's definitely over 15. And I'd say about 95% of those clients were all first-time competitors. And I think I've only had one that placed out of the top 5. And you got to remember, some people do shows to kind of wrap up a weight loss journey, not necessarily to be competitive to win. In a lot of these local amateur shows, a lot of people like lose 100 pounds and want to step on stage, like not even caring whether they get first or last. They just want to have that confidence, which is perfectly fine. That's why when I have someone inquire about competing, I'm like, sure, we can compete whenever you want. Really, what's your purpose behind it? Are you trying to wrap up like a weight loss thing, or do you want to be competitive? If you want to be competitive, I mean, I'm talking to a client right now who's asking about March. If she wants to step on stage for March, we can. But if we want to be competitive, I'm probably going to need her 1 to 3 years of legitimate prep. Not 1 to 3 years of a deficit, but 1 to 3 years of going into several deficits and coming out of it in order for us to be competitive. So majority of my clients are first-time competitors, and once my clients reach a certain point where they want to go to the other side of the sport, and there's no reason for me to sugarcoat it, I'm talking about PEDs. My coaching, I deal with training and nutrition and everything outside of that. When we're speaking of PEDs, I would definitely recommend someone. I do what I do, what I think I do, I think I do the best. That's just the way I walk around. And I'm not going to pretend like I know about something that I don't. So that's when I would refer another coach to join in and take over that coaching while I keep the training and the nutrition side. Or we just completely find another coach for them to take over, so you have one cook in the kitchen, and that's perfectly fine too. You know, I'm at peace with like introducing that person to the sport, having them do well their first show, having them go all the way through the sport as far as they can naturally. That's awesome. You know, one of the people to start using later than anyone was Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman went pro naturally, went all the way to the Olympia naturally. Didn't place well, but if you can get that far naturally, you're the GOAT.
Yeah.
So.
But you're posing, it's known enough that you've got other coaches and other people referring people to you specifically posing.
Yes, and that comes from first-time competitors who knew nothing about the sport being the best poser. So that is where it does show that there was a lot of good teaching done for someone to get that type of award, like a best poser award or something. Jahari, for example, he's competed in one show. He won the entire thing, and he also got best poser award for his very, very first show, you know, and we just did little 15-minute increments 3 times a week, something for him to walk away with, you know. So when you have a first-time competitor being a better poser than others who have done several shows, there's education there, you know. There was strategy there from the time they walk out of the curtains to the time they go back. And again, teaching is in my blood. Teaching comes very natural to me. For me to dumb something down and give someone a piece of information that is easy to digest is something that feels very natural to me. So I like doing it. Just because someone's a good poser doesn't mean they're good at teaching posing. That stuff is very innate to me.
Something I appreciate about having watched you train through posing and walk through a workout with me is you approach posing in 2 unique but very sort of fundamental and supplemental ways. You talk about posing mechanically, right? In terms of when you're training, learning how to pose can help you isolate your lats, for example, or make sure you're isolating a specific muscle to help hit it and target it when you're working out. But then you also have this very artistic view of what posing is and how it can go. Dive a little more deep into that.
Yeah, so from a physical therapy standpoint, through that lens, Dre's building something. She's the man of the house. From a physical therapy standpoint, it's not a coincidence that everything we see tends to be overtrained for most people. People's chest is generally more developed than people's backs. People's front delts more developed than the rear delt. Bicep more than tricep, quad more than hamstring, abs more than lower back. Why? Because when we judge ourselves and when they look in the mirror, they're like, okay, I can see my chest is getting a little more developed, but they don't have a connection with their glutes. They don't know how to contract their hamstrings. They don't know how to flex their lats. They don't even know that they're in a hunchback position like this. Right. So because they're so close and so tight from all the crunching, all the pressing, all the flying, that and then all the working, now they haven't opened up. They haven't deadlifted, or they don't know what to engage prior to deadlifting, or how to do a lat pull down for back dominance. People think of a pull-up, they just think chin over the bar. From a performance standpoint, sure. If you want to get a free t-shirt from the Marines, yeah, chin over the bar.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to engage your lat, we want shoulder down to hip. So those are little things. And then how do you open your lats? And posing when you're on stage, there's no mirrors. So now even the front of your body, you can't see. So you need to be able to feel all these muscle groups. And this is why I like to train in hoodies or oversized tees, is because I'm not getting that feedback or pump or neuromuscular connection from my vision. I'm feeling it. I know when I have a good pump, okay? Then I can take the oversized t-shirt off to just kind of see how conditioning is and how vascularity is going, but I'll do that for a couple sets and then I'll put my t-shirt back on. So yeah, that's where posing can really help your training, even if you're not into competitive bodybuilding or figure or physique or anything like that. I think the days that it helps the most are probably leg days and back days and like shoulder days and stuff like that.
I find myself sometimes even just finding it helpful when I'm, in the grocery store or something, and I do notice like, oh, I'm a little hunched right now. Like, let me open up my chest a little bit, just have good posture.
Yeah, and one of my mentors in physical therapy said one of the best ways to get someone in good posture without them feeling like they need to over-exaggerate is to pretend that you're about to walk backwards, and you kind of automatically straighten up when you do that in a more natural way, not like, oh, let me pop up.
Yeah.
So for people listening, think of walking backwards if you're hunched over.
And now take me through the artistic side, because is it classic where you get to have a routine with music?
So classic is fairly new. Classic started in let me look that up actually. Let's say it started in 2016. It's just paying homage to old school bodybuilding. Bodybuilding has posing routines as well. It's typically at the night show. And it's typically not judged. Still the most important posing to learn, which a lot of kids nowadays get distracted by as much as I love art, kids nowadays are getting distracted by trying to be over artsy with their posing, when the most important part of a bodybuilding show is the comparisons. And that's where, if you know how to pose or not, is judged the most, is whether you know how to hit your pose, hold it, and transition to the next one smoothly, and make your strengths look stronger and your weaknesses knowing how to hide them. The comparisons are where judges are taking their score. Being able to do kneeling, twisting, back double biceps, great, but you got to learn how to walk before you can run. And that's one mistake I see a lot of people making, is the people who are saying that they're super, super, super into posing. They're overdoing it with the artsy stuff, and they need to master like how to make their quads look bigger from the front on a front double bicep and hold it. That's way more important. Then a posing routine, once you know how to do all the mandatory poses and do them perfectly, then you can start worrying about a posing routine. Because a good routine, again, isn't about twisting or jumping or doing all these artsy poses. Good posing at the end of the day stems from song choice, knowing how to pose correctly, and hitting your pose in sync with the music, and knowing how to close up on those slower sides and open up on the crescendos. Like that's how you draw attention to what's a good poser or not. You could have a phenomenal posing routine with just doing mandatory poses, but if they match up with the song choice well, and they're landed on time, and they're smooth, and it looks effortless, that, in my opinion, is a good posing routine. Once you have that, then you want to start adding the really artistic posing on top of that, and when it's done tastefully, it's beautiful. And there's a lot of bodybuilders that do that to perfection. Also, you have to be self-aware with what your physique is. Branch Warren or people with like really hard grainy muscle that may not have the most aesthetic physique in the world. Sometimes a posing routine is better if they just go out there and monster it. Doesn't mean to be off cue or off time, but the kneeling poses and all these artsy shots may not do their body and their look and their aura like justice. So it might be better for their song choice to be like hard rock or a really aggressive rap song, and actually just be a monster with it, be a beast. Prettier physiques, maybe a little smaller, a little more streamlined. Yeah, that's where those like slower R&B songs can definitely shine through in there.